Good evening. This is Ruchika Agarwal from the city of Palo Alto. We are just about to begin the Alma Churchill Safety Improvement Project community meeting. We'll give another minute or two for folks to join in. All right, thank you everybody for joining. I don't see our attendees number increase anymore, and it's about a few minutes past 6:30, so we can begin it now. I see we have 20 attendees at this meeting. All right, I think we have everybody who is planning to join at this minute, and people can join in, of course, anytime during the presentation. I would like to share the agenda for today's meeting. So next slide, please. We will begin with introductions. I'd like to introduce the project team, and then a few items on housekeeping, just a few reminders and few things to note. We'll begin, then continue on to the project background, giving some information on the project and the conditions, existing conditions, opportunities and constraints for this project, the two preliminary concepts that we are planning to propose today as part of this community meeting. Next steps and the schedule for this project, what is in line moving forward after this community meeting. We'd like to share that. Q&A, question and answers on any other comments or feedback that anyone today would like to share with the city staff and the project team. Please do that. And in closing, we would have the last few remarks. Next slide, please. We can go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there. Sorry.
Sorry, this is the unprecedented times of Zoom meetings here, so we're all having some technical. Oh, great, thank you.
Little sticky keys. Apologize for that.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Marie. So my name is Ruchika Agarwal. I'm with the city of Palo Alto in the Office of Transportation. I'm the project manager for this project. Along with me, the speaker today is Marie Mai from Calendar Associates. She is helping us with the meeting facilitation and other public outreach meetings and materials that we have as a part of this project. On our team, we also have engineers from BKF, Jason E., Jason Mansfield, and Jonathan Centofranchi. They're all here to help us answer any questions on the design or any other elements of the project. The traffic study and the traffic analysis was done by Hexagon, and we have Trisha from that firm representing us on the project team. From the staff from the city of Palo Alto, we have Philip Cami, Rafael Rios, and Ripin Bhatia. They're all here to answer any other questions you may have for this project or any other concerns the residents may have. Thanks. Next slide.
Sorry, still having trouble getting the key to advance. Okay, there.
Thank you. I appreciate all your patience while we are navigating some technical issues. Just a few housekeeping items I would like to go over before we get into the meeting. Today's meeting is being recorded, just as an FYI. Please submit any questions or comments you may have through the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. We would get to all the questions at the end of the presentation. You may also keep your hands raised or raise your hands. You can do it now so we can get an estimate of how many questions we should be anticipating, and accordingly make sure that we have allocated enough time for everybody. We are also in the process of developing and creating a project delivery list. So please, if you send us an email address, send us an email at the email address of transportation@cityofpaloalto.org. We would subscribe you to the project webpage and send you updates as to what the next steps are for this project. We do have a project webpage, and I know this URL is not an easy one to remember, but we would post all this presentation and everything, all the materials on our project webpage at this location. And you can also search it through the departments under Office of Transportation. So this webpage is fairly easy to find. Thank you. Just to give a background on the project information, the project limit is the intersection of Alma and Churchill, which is a railroad crossing. This project is funded by Section 130, which is a federal program that was created for the elimination of hazards at grade crossings, at rail grade crossings. The FRA, which is the Federal Railway Administration, has identified that this location, Alma and Churchill, has been identified for some improvements based on the data, collision data that they have gathered from 2015 until October of 2020. And unfortunately, as some of you may know, there was another incident that happened a few hours ago at this location at Churchill and Alma. We don't have all the details yet, but according to the press release from Caltrains, Caltrains fatally struck an adult male who was trespassing on the tracks at the Churchill Avenue grade crossing. So we just wanted to acknowledge the project team is aware of that incident. This is a project, it's in partnership with Caltrain, which is a rail commuter in the peninsula, and Caltrans, which is the State Department of Transportation, and the City of Palo Alto. City is required to follow the guidelines and the requirements of California Public Utility Commissions. That's a part of the project, and we have a limited specific scope for this work as to what can be done through this funding and through the partnership with these multiple agencies. A few of the design elements that we are looking into today to enhance safety, which is the major or the primary goal of the project, is to add a pre-signal to avoid queuing of cars on the tracks and increasing the and allowing them not to stop on the tracks. That would require some signal modifications, potentially signal relocations of some signal heads and poles, sidewalk realignment and widening, giving an opportunity to increase the storage space for pedestrians to wait at those corners, improving the curb ramps for the sidewalks, possibly improving drainage improvements, and signing and striping, making the crosswalks more visible and more more brighter. So, thank you. Next step. As I mentioned, there are multiple stakeholders or multiple agencies that are involved in this project. Caltrans is the state department. This is a federal program, so the funding has been allocated by the federal government, but it is administered through the State Department of California. So they are our funding partner. Caltrain and JPB, the Joint Powers Board. Joint Power Board is the governing agency that owns and operates Caltrain along the peninsula. CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, they regulate and the services and amongst other infrastructure, the rail transit. So they are also involved in this project. There was a diagnostic meeting that was held a few years ago, which was attended by the members of the city, the CPUC, JPB, Caltrain, and Caltrans. And based on that meeting, recommendations were developed to enhance safety at this location. And those recommendations are what we are working on in trying to implement those as a part of this project. Some of the other stakeholders are the Palo Alto High School that draws a lot of students from the neighborhood and across this intersection, and adjacent homeowners. Some of the technical constraints that we have in this location or at the project site is right of way. The city is working along with JPB in terms of making improvements for this intersection. So city is planning to implement the improvements that falls within the city's right of way, and at the same time, concurrently, JPB is also making changes along their right of way, along the tracks to enhance safety. We have to work around existing utilities that are already present. The visibility is an issue also because of the train, the lights and the cantilevers that are present. Intersection capacity is another constraint. If this intersection is unique in a way, most intersections or most areas would have two commute times or peak hour times, the morning commute and the evening commute. However, this intersection, because of the proximity of the school, has another rush hour peak between around 2 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. So those are some of the constraints and that we are working alongside with. Some of the other projects I want to just kind of briefly touch upon in the vicinity of where we are working on. The blue bubble or the dot that you see, that's a project site for us, the Alma Churchill intersection. Churchill Avenue Enhanced Bikeway Project is another project that is highlighted in this slide as on the map as a red dot. It's a council approved project in final design stage right now. It would enhance the bike path from the school to El Camino Real and extend it to the existing Stanford Perimeter Trail. It would also include improvements of the intersection of El Camino and Churchill Avenue. The other major project that most of you might be aware of is the railroad grade separation project that is involving every other grade crossing within the city. And of course, Alma and Churchill is one of them. Currently, the XCAP, the Community Advisory Panel, the expanded Community Advisory Panel, they are reviewing various alternatives for all the locations, and they would be providing recommendation to the City Council pretty soon. So those are the two projects that I just wanted to briefly touch upon. And there's more information of both of these projects on our city's web pages that, of course, anybody is welcome to take a look at it for more details. With that, I am going to hand over to my colleague Marie Mai, and she would take it on from here. Thanks, Marie.
Great, thank you, Ruchika. So I was hoping to get a sense of who is in the audience by doing a short poll. So we'd like to try to launch a 3-question poll now. And that'll just help us better understand the makeup of the group that we have here tonight, and just understand maybe your familiarity, how familiar you might be with the project site. So hopefully you see on your screen 3 questions. And so the first question: do you live near the intersection? Just understanding, how close do you live, and are you within walking distance? So if you can go ahead, read through the question and select one of the multiple choice responses that best describes your situation. So we'll leave a little bit of time for you to respond and read through that. And then, hopefully you're moving on to the second question. Why do you typically pass through the intersection? Is it to go to school? Is it to go to work? Is it to do other things? So again, just wanting to understand how you might currently use the intersection. And then the third question, how do you typically travel through the intersection? We recognize that likely if you live in the area, you're probably maybe driving and walking in the area. So go ahead and just select the choice that kind of describes your typical mode of getting around. And then if we, looks like most of the responses are in. Sarah, you can go ahead and close the poll at that point.
Okay, looks like 20 out of 25. Go ahead and end it.
Sure, yeah. So we've ended the poll, and we'll be sharing the results. So first question, do you live near the intersection? So yes, looks like not a majority, but a big segment of attendees tonight do live within walking distance of the project, and actually on Alma or Churchill. And I would say the majority, 75% of attendees tonight live within walking distance of the area of the intersection. Question number 2, why do you typically pass through? Looks like most people it's to do other things. So, weekend trips, evening trips, that kind of thing. Looks like there are a few commuters that use this intersection specifically, and then we do have about 5%, so a few people going to school, possibly to Pali. And then the last question, how do you typically travel through the intersection? So it looks like most of you experience the intersection as a driver, as a motorist, but it looks like we also have a good number of people who experience the intersection, by walking through the area and also by biking, and we have some train riders here too. So I appreciate you answering the questions and participating in the poll. I think that just gives everyone just a sense of familiarity and maybe some perspectives that we might be bringing to the meeting tonight. So thank you for that. Okay, so the next few slides, I'm going to be going through the site itself, describing some of the opportunities and constraints. It looks like most people attending, are quite familiar with the intersection, but for those who may not be, just to get us all on the same page, this plan here is a bird's eye view of the project area. It's focused on the roadway and the Caltrain track intersection. And so we're outlining that in the white dash. To orient you, Alma Street and the Caltrain tracks run roughly top to bottom on the page. And so just to, for ease of reference, we're gonna go ahead and call kind of the top of Alma North. So it's almost gonna be roughly north-south, and then Churchill runs roughly left to right or west to east. You can see Palo Alto High School is towards the top of the image near location A. And so you can see that we've added location labels because there's basically 6 kind of key points, key locations within the project. And we're labeling it A, B, and C for the locations to the north of the combined intersection between the tracks and the roadway. And then we've labeled X, Y, and Z, the corners to the south. And then the intersection sits within a very residential area of the city, of the neighborhood, and certainly providing access to Palo Alto High School. The yellow arrows here represent and show the number of lanes of vehicular traffic. So just to give us a sense of, as a motorist, how you might be kind of traveling through the intersection. We understand, and in the poll responses, we can see, that there is a mix of uses of modes. So in the morning, with the school, proximity of the school, the work commute period, there is significant traffic on traveling westbound on Churchill Avenue. And this congestion tends to spill into the northbound left turn lane on Alma, as well as extending along Churchill east of Alma. There's a lot of bike and pedestrian school traffic in the morning. And in the afternoon, there is also very significant traffic turning right from eastbound Churchill to southbound Alma. So a lot of, during the peak periods in the morning, the school letting out, and then the evening commute periods, a lot of motorists, a lot of pedestrians, a lot of cyclists using this intersection. Photo number 1 shows a view from location C, looking westbound towards the tracks. And so you can see, there's a car queuing near the tracks. You can see the railroad gate arms and overhead utility lines and poles and some of the existing railroad infrastructure and utilities. Photo number 2 at the bottom shows the westbound vehicular traffic during the morning commute. So you can see, the students commuting to the school, riding their bikes. You can see the motorists, drivers queuing there to get through the intersection. In this slide with the yellow, we are showing the existing sidewalk and crosswalk locations through the project area, and basically, the pedestrian route. The orange and green squares show the location of the existing curb ramps, and the blue shows the location of the railroad safety infrastructure, including things like the gates and the barriers that help funnel pedestrians through the tracks. And so as pedestrians cross the tracks, we're showing here in red, they are being funneled through the gates through a specific location across the tracks. You can see that there is a potential area of constraint at location B. That's where pedestrians, and bicyclists get bookended between the trails, the tracks and the trains on one side, and then cars and roadways on the other. And so that does tend to be a location where there is high kind of crowding, a lot of queuing, and very heavy use both morning and after school. And then with the photos, photo number 3, you can see the existing yellow rail gates and the barriers, the pedestrian barriers that serve to funnel pedestrians across a fairly narrow width across the tracks. And then photo 4 at the bottom shows a view from the opposite corner of the street. In the background, you do see the motorists traveling through the intersection, and also bicyclists and pedestrian students waiting at that location B. This slide here shows bicycle routes through the area, consisting of Class 2 bike lanes in the street, which are in both directions along Churchill Avenue. And then there's an off-street bike path that goes along the school perimeter. And so that's shown in photo 5. And then the bottom, photo 6, gives you a good sense of how well used Churchill Avenue is. In this photo, it's showing the afternoon school kind of peak hour. You can see a lot of student cyclists, many of them riding in the bike lane, but also some of them taking over the travel lane. So a lot of cyclist use here. So with that overview of the project background and overview of the site, I'd like to walk you through the 2 concept alternatives. And just, normally we would really only develop a design, after meeting with you and after receiving initial input from the community. But as Ruchika mentioned early in the presentation, this project does have very unique considerations and constraints related to the railroad and the scope of work limitations. And so because of that, our options in terms of design, it's fairly well defined. So with that, the team's gone ahead and developed 2 concepts. So this first concept shown to the right, at first glance, it might look fairly similar to the current conditions. You see the number of vehicular lanes remains the same. The crosswalks are still provided across the 3 legs of the intersection to the north, the south, and the east. But there are a number of enhancements focused primarily on improving the visibility of pedestrians. And then so that's being done by using higher visibility yellow ladder striping to replace the standard parallel markings. Stop bars, advanced stop bars shown in white, are proposed to be placed at a distance from the crosswalk. And so that helps to discourage motorists from encroaching into the crosswalk. It also helps maximize visibility of pedestrians as they're crossing the street. And then the sidewalk pavement at location B, that location I mentioned is being somewhat constrained between the tracks and the road. There's an opportunity here to expand that area, that pavement limit, to almost double what the current pavement provides. And so that allows for greater space, greater area for students, waiting to cross the tracks, towards school. And you can see that, the lighter gray area by the label location B compared to the red dashed line, which represents the area, the limits of the existing pavement. And then as pedestrians, cross the tracks, wider access is proposed to be provided by lengthening the gate arms and adjusting the location. So, there's a little bit more space. Students don't have to cross single file. So in addition to the pedestrian enhancements, a pre-signal is also proposed at this location, labeled X. And it would be a signal for eastbound vehicles traveling on Churchill that would prevent vehicles from queuing within that train crossing area by location Y. So this pre-signal, because it's restricting eastbound vehicles from turning right on red onto southbound Alma. Because that movement would be restricted, there is a potential for that restriction to impact traffic capacity and to increase traffic congestion. However, with modifications to the signal timing and the phasing, we're finding that potential negative effect can be fully mitigated. So the takeaway there, the end result is that traffic congestion overall would actually improve. Traffic delays overall would be shorter compared to the existing conditions. And that's even taking into account the increased frequency of trains from the Caltrain, the future track electrification. All right, so that's concept 1. We're going to share concept 2 now. And so you'll see here, much of the design is similar to concept one. It too provides improved pedestrian visibility through the same, high visibility crosswalks, through the advanced stop bars, through the wider access across the tracks. But there are a number of key differences from concept one. And they are the result of elimination and replacement of the southbound right turn only lane on Alma Street. And so that's the area that you see in green on the plan. Currently, that is a dedicated right turn only lane. And concept two would propose to remove that lane in order to accomplish a few things. One, by removing that right turn only lane, the Alma Street crossing distance is going to be shorter. Shorter is safer. And then also that width of former lane would give us the opportunity to increase even further the potential pedestrian queuing space. And so again, you can see it in the lighter gray, the potential queuing space, or the area of concrete pavement of sidewalk is 3 to 4 times as much as the existing, and then compared to concept one is roughly twice as much as concept one. So that allows for a greater number of pedestrians to cross Alma and then have a place to wait and to queue before they cross the tracks. The elimination of the right turn only lane also provides an opportunity to replace pavement with stormwater, with a stormwater planter. And again, that's shown in the green area. And so that would meet, the city's environmental goals. It would help treat stormwater runoff and improve water quality. And there's a photo, what is a stormwater planter? So there's a photo, an example of an existing stormwater planter, another name for that's green infrastructure that you see in the photo towards the middle there, and that's on Castellea, an existing facility. And then the elimination of the lane also allows for some of that width to be redistributed to the lanes on Alma Street north of the intersection. So we can create slightly wider lanes, and that can help because Alma is a truck route. And then lastly, we do want to compare the potential traffic impacts related to the removal of this right turn only lane. And again, kind of the key takeaway is that, through mitigation, through signal, timing modifications and phasing modifications, the overall delay of the intersection is going to be better than the existing conditions. When you compare it between concept two and concept one, the reduction in delay in concept two is slightly less, less than concept one. So those are the two concepts. I would say, just to summarize the key takeaways, both concepts are looking to enhance pedestrian safety, visibility across the intersection. They both help reduce traffic congestion overall. But in terms of comparing concept one and concept two, one does reduce the potential congestion to a greater degree. It does, on the flip side, concept two does provide for some enhanced benefits related to stormwater treatment and queuing. So with that, I'm going to switch to the next slide, and we'll be wrapping up our presentation shortly and opening up for questions. So this slide shows the anticipated project schedule. We are still very early in the stages of project development. We're evaluating the two concepts, beginning with today's meeting and getting your input. And then we're going to be continuing, through March, through April, with presentations to a number of groups, including the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting with them in a few weeks. We'll be meeting with the school and their safety committee. And then we're going to be bringing it to City Council, roughly March, April timeframe. And so the goal at that meeting will be to obtain Council's approval to proceed with one of the two designs presented today. that will be a public hearing, and you are welcome. You're encouraged to attend if you'd like to provide further comments, and or show support for the project. And then so just to note, for this meeting, residents living within 1,000 feet of the project were notified by mail. In the future, those same residents will be notified by mail of that upcoming council meeting, and then also of the second community meeting, which is slated for spring. And for everyone else living further than that distance, if you sign up, and provide us with the email, the city will be emailing you and notifying you via email of future meetings. So that would be a great way to remain engaged and stay involved and be notified of the project. So with that, at the community meeting number 2 in the spring, we would be looking to bring back to you the preferred concept. So we're hoping, between concept 1 or 2, to take that, refine it further, incorporate the input that we'll be hearing over the next few months, and then reporting back to you in a second community meeting. And then from there, developing construction drawings from the spring through the fall of this year, and then looking to go to construction in 2020. Okay, so at this point, we are done with the presentation portion of the meeting. I'd like to open up the meeting to hearing your feedback and answering your questions. So just to reiterate some of the points that Rishika had mentioned early on, if you have a question or a comment, we ask you to use the raise hand function to let us know that you'd like to speak. You can see the icon shown in the graphic there on the screen. So once you raise hand, staff will unmute you, and then you should see a pop-up window asking you to unmute yourself. If you're participating by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and we'll identify you by your phone number, last 4 digits. Let's see, so I'm going to take a look. Looks like we've got 29 attendees, so seems like a pretty manageable size group, and I think we should be able to get through everyone. We ask that you keep your comments and questions succinct and tone respectful, and that way, hopefully we can get through everyone. Everyone will get a chance to ask at least a question, and hopefully, maybe more rounds. We do want to give everyone the opportunity to ask their question and provide their feedback. So in terms of feedback that we are asking for, we would like to hear what you like about each concept and what you would like changed. And we're going to be using that feedback, by the end of the meeting. We are hoping to have a fairly clear direction on a preferred design to move forward with, but also to continue to refine and to continue to incorporate your feedback. So with that, I'm going to ask Sarah, and I'm going to bring up my Q&A, and I guess we'll start with the raised hand, and maybe Sarah, if you can help.
Sure. And yes to having a timer, or?
I think it doesn't hurt. We won't be, necessarily super strict about it, but I think that just helps everyone kind of keep everyone on task. And hopefully if you can keep your comments and questions to within that time, that just allows, everyone to a chance to speak.
Okay. So Rippin, if you're there with the timer.
And I'm going to go ahead. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and unshare my screen.
Okay, great.
Trying to click on it. There we are.
Okay. Okay, so I do see 3 raised hands, and the first person is Neva Yarkin. So Neva, I am going to, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Okay, my name is Neva Yarkin and I live at 133 Churchill Avenue. I complained years ago about safety problems at the intersection of Churchill and Alma. You have approximately 80 bike riders at about 8 a.m. going to Pally and Stanford, who are stacked up on Churchill waiting for the light to change on Alma. Once the light changes, you have some bike riders caught in the middle of the Alma intersection because of the train crossing gates have gone down for a train. You have students waiting for the train to pass, caught in between cars and blocking traffic on Alma. Part of this, I think, was covered in concept 2, but I have pictures of this problem and I need an email or something to where to send this to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. We understand the concerns that you bring up are definitely things that we are looking to try to address. We again just we are limited somewhat in the improvements that can be addressed as part of this specific project. Again, just because of the funding. We did mention there are other related projects that will be addressing and helping to alleviate some of those, particularly I think the bicycle safety and the bicycle circulation component of your comment.
I can just chime in really quickly. Neva, you could email those to transportation at cityofpaloalto.org. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, the next speaker is Marion Kraus. Ms. Kraus, if you should be able to speak now, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I live on Castellea, right near Churchill. I'm just wondering why this is even being considered when it could be completely changed with the electrification project now being considered by the XCAP. I guess that's really my question is what's the point if it's all going to be changed in the not too distant future?
Yeah, I can answer that for the group. Really, I think if you look at it in terms of these improvements are considered interim improvements, they can happen on a much more kind of quick schedule. Looking at that schedule within the next 2 years. The XCAP project, the grade separation project, certainly will be able to address in a much more comprehensive way kind of the overall circulation, kind of multimodal challenges of this intersection. But that will take a little bit more time. The council, the city is still in the process of evaluating various alternatives, and that will take time. It is a major infrastructure project, will need major funding, and so this is attempting to address some of the more immediate safety concerns.
And just so that I can put my 2 cents in, I would be in favor of concept 1 because us living in Southgate often come down Alma from downtown, and we need to be able to turn right into our community. And I think that would be a big hindrance for us to be able to turn right onto Churchill.
Okay.
If I can just note a minor point of, you might already know this, but the second concept does not prohibit a right turn. It just merges one of the through lanes with the right turn lane.
Okay. That
so you
didn't
still,
seem clear. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry. So you still can make the right turn.
Okay.
And actually, if you look at concept 2, it's a little bit hard to see, and I apologize for that. But there's a through and a right turn arrow, and so what it does is it takes that space where the right hand turn lane, which didn't really have much space, and actually sometimes would back up and end up blocking the through lane on Alma. It takes that lane away and makes it a merged through and right turn lane,
Okay,
and then gives a
gotcha.
little more capacity. Not that necessarily changes your mind, but just to clarify the concept.
No, thank you. That clarifies it. Then I wouldn't be opposed to either one. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Okay. Give me a moment. Okay. Okay, the next speaker is Michael Price. Mr. Price, let's see, you should be able to speak now.
This is a comment on concept 2. By eliminating the right turn lane, what you've done is you've caused, you're forcing people who want to turn right, but when Caltrain is blocking the intersection, they block all of the southbound traffic in that lane. So even one car that wants to turn right during a Caltrain crossing will cause a backup on Alma. This doesn't, I mean, the comment was made earlier that this design improves congestion. It's quite incredible that that would be the case, given that it's going to be blocked whenever the train crosses. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, Trisha, do you think you want to take this one?
Yeah, so yes, we did look at that analysis, and by eliminating that right turn lane, vehicles would be able to turn right through via the through lane. I'd like to point out that there are 2 southbound through lanes on Alma. So you are right, in the rightmost through lane, if there is a vehicle that's stopped, that wants to go through and that's stopped, and there's a vehicle behind that that's waiting to turn right, yes, it would block. But what our analysis shows is that eliminating that right turn lane does increase the delay for the southbound approach on Alma. But because of the other timing and phasing improvements that we have recommended at the traffic signal, the overall delay would be reduced compared to the existing conditions.
Well, Philip mentioned just a minute ago that there are cases where the cars waiting to turn right have filled up the right turn lane and back into the Alma, causing congestion. That problem is going to be far worse with no right turn lane. So I think an assertion that you can change the timing and eliminate the backup needs some support. And also, if the through lane is green and you're coming down Alma and there are people stopped on the lane in front of you, you know that's going to cause a lot of consternation with the drivers who are going to be honking at the people stopped there, even if they have to stop for a little bit, because it's unusual to find somebody stopped when the light is green, which is what you're going to be creating.
Yes, that is one thing. Yeah, that's that is one thing. But then we've also observed that the right turn traffic comparatively is low, and there have been situations where the through traffic queues up and blocks access to the right turn lane, because the right turn pocket is, the length of the right turn pocket is pretty small. It's less than 100 feet. So that's the reason we looked at this alternative to see if there would be more benefit by taking out that right turn lane and make it provide more queuing space for the pedestrians and bicyclists. But yes, that issue would be there, like you pointed out, when there's a green and a vehicle wants to take a right, when due to the railroad gates, they would have to wait and they would block the through traffic, but then the through traffic could use the adjacent through lane to pass through the intersection.
Well, when there's no COVID-19 reduction in traffic, the actual traffic on that street in the evening is pretty significant. Both lanes are pretty full of traffic. So I think it's going to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Let's take one more Q&A question, then I'm going to switch to those who've typed comments in because they've been submitting their comments and been waiting patiently. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so one more raised hand.
Yes,
for
please.
now. Okay. Okay, the next speaker is Elle Appear. So you should be able to speak now. Please go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I think both of these concepts are great, especially for bicyclists. I particularly like concept 2 just because it gives more room for the bicyclists in the morning. I was a bike commuter on Churchill for many years, going to my job at Stanford. And I think having a larger space for them to queue up is great. And I also think that the city should pause any XCAP consideration of changing the Churchill intersection until they've made these adjustments and then see how things work once it's been done. I also think it would be really helpful to paint the bike lanes bright green on Churchill, especially coming from Churchill, from El Camino towards Alma. It'd be really helpful to have a very visible bike lane. So I'm all for this. I think we should pursue this instead of closing Churchill, which the XCAP committee seems determined to do. And I think that one of the other comments was that enforce the left turn only in the morning, which is literally never enforced from Churchill. From the east side of the intersection, if people can only make left turns and not go straight, that will help the bicycles a lot. So I'm in favor for both of these concepts, and I hope the city will pause consideration of closing Churchill and do this mitigation instead, because you have thousands of kids going to and from Pali every day, as well as staff, as well as buses, and commuters going to Stanford. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments.
I'm just petitioning that we could take the one last raised hand that we have before we move on. Sorry if that's all right.
No, that sounds fine. Sounds good.
Okay, yep, we've got one more raised hand, and that is Nadia Nayak. Ms. Nayak, you should be able to speak now. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, Philip. So I had a couple of questions. One is, so what is the traffic impact by moving the light back further to where the X letter is on El Camino? Because right now in the afternoons, you have a pretty bad backup that happens in that short stretch between Alma and El Camino. And by preventing any right turns, which I think is absolutely appropriate to make it safer, but I'm just interested in how somehow the timing of the light signals can be made so much more efficient. Is it the light signal at Alma and Churchill, or are you talking about also tweaking the light signal at El Camino? That's one question. The second is the current left turn lane that you're proposing to remove in concept 2 is actually, I believe, encroaches on the Caltrain right of way. So is this new queuing space going to not encroach, and are we giving back that encroachment? Those are my questions.
Okay.
I can answer the first question.
Yeah.
So in terms of the backup, so on eastbound Churchill, you're right, the pre-signal would have to, it would prohibit vehicles to make a right turn on red. So that's the reason we did the traffic analysis. And our analysis showed that there would be significant backup to El Camino route on eastbound Churchill. So we looked at ways where we could mitigate this negative impact, and we did come up with some signal timing and phasing modification, like provide an overlap phasing for the eastbound right turns. So whenever the northbound left turn on Alma receives green, the eastbound right turn would also receive green, so they would go concurrently without any conflict. With that, and then some in terms of the phasing improvements, and also allocating a little bit more green time to eastbound Churchill in the PM peak, the analysis showed that the adverse impacts from the pre-signal would be mitigated.
Okay. And in terms of the Caltrain encroachment, you don't know?
I think probably BKF can answer that question, the engineers.
Yeah, this is Jason Yee with BKF Engineers. Yeah, you're right to point out that the tracks are right there, but it's only in the existing condition, it only encroaches about a foot beyond the right-of-way, the city right-of-way, but you're good to key onto that. So we're not giving up a whole bunch of space back, but it is a portion of it, a small portion of it in concept 2.
Okay, thank you for that.
Hey, thank you for that, Nadia. I believe we're okay to switch to the typed questions. Is that right? Do we have any other raised hands? Okay.
No more raised hands.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm looking at the first question and answer. It looks like it's from Ken Joy. It looks like it's a clarification of the poll response. So thank you. You said my interest is in making sure that access to that path remains clear and optimized. And it looks like the path that he's referring to is that perimeter path, and that would be the case. Yeah. Philip, do you have something to add to that? Sorry, you're muted.
Sorry, no, I was actually trying to handle the answering it live.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Ken's second question, the yellow arrows depicting motor vehicle movements do not reflect the morning through restriction for westbound traffic. Yeah, you're correct. We simplified the graphic depiction there. Anonymous attendee is the next question. Will the morning through restriction on westbound Churchill be retained? Tricia, can you respond to that?
Yes, that's as far as my understanding, yes, that will be in place. That would not change with the safety with the proposed safety improvements.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is Karen Honer. Eliminating the right turn on red option from Churchill to Alma will cause significant backup on Churchill, possibly impacting further the ability of drivers to get out of Southgate from Castilleja and also from Mariposa. I believe we've answered that, but maybe Tricia, if you can just expand.
Yes, we did answer that. So we would be providing a right turn overlap phasing for the eastbound right turn vehicles. So they would have like a green arrow whenever the northbound left turn receives a green, so that the northbound left and the eastbound right would go concurrently. And our analysis showed that with by providing an overlap phasing for the eastbound right turns, as well as some other phasing and timing modifications, the adverse impacts from this signal would be mitigated.
Okay, great. Thank you for that response. So Karen had a second question. In the morning, the main backup of cyclists is at location C, which is in the northeast corner, and not the northwest corner, not location B, I think is what she's referring to there. So the expanded area gained by limiting the right turn from Alma to Churchill doesn't help much. So yeah, Karen, you are right. There are a lot of cyclists who end up getting queued at location C, waiting for the light, the green light to cross Alma. Again, the improvements proposed here are really more focused on pedestrians and just kind of the longer term, kind of more comprehensive improvements to address some of the bike circulation would be addressed in future and some of that XCAP project. And then Carrie Yarkin asks, what about enforcing the left turn only from 8:15 to 8:45 from Churchill, crossing Alma? If there is enforcement, the bikes can get to school more safely and take over the road instead of sharing with cars in the morning. So that's a left turn only. Tricia, I think that might be an answer or a question for you.
In terms of enforcement, I think the city should be able to give feedback. I mean, it is right. There is a sign up there that says no left turns between 7:45 and 8:30 a.m. But in terms of the traffic counts, when we did our traffic counts, yes, during that time period, there are still some vehicles that do not, that still go through the intersection from east of Churchill to the west, crossing the intersection. So maybe the city can provide more input in terms of how that can be enforced.
Sure. Hi, this is Raphael. Let me a little bit of background on this. The main reason why this restriction is there is because historically, sometimes cars would the queue of cars would back up from the Pali High School driveway and back over to the track. So this was an effort to reduce the queue. I know the comment just suggested shifting the hour of the time of the restriction a little bit later. And I know bell times have changed, and that's something we could look into. We could also ask our police department to increase enforcement of it also. That would be up to the police department.
Yeah, I guess I'll share with that, although of course we're in uncommon times right now, so I don't know that this impact is going on right now, but I have previously shared with PD that there was an issue where cars weren't necessarily following that the left turn only there. And so that has been shared with PD previously. They said that they were going to step up their enforcement there at that time. That was last time school was in session, so over a year ago. And but that's something that we can share with PD again.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those the responses and the clarification, and for that question. Next we have Sarah. So just a comment. I wonder if creating a signal or having a crossing guard at the entrance to Pali could help in any way. Car traffic stops to let students through probably leads to part of the Churchill backup. I realize it's only a small element of the issue, but it could make a slight difference, so her opinion. So we will thank you for that comment, and we will to take that and consider it. Next comment, can the city paint the bike lanes green so that motorists see them more clearly? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Churchill bike enhancement project is proposing to paint the bike lanes green. Is that right?
Yes, that's included with the early concepts. And did you want to add anything, Ripon?
I was going to say the Churchill Avenue and bike enhancement project starts from the school entrance to the Alma, and that will include some of the improvements on the bike path enhancements. So not at this section.
Okay, great. Thank you for the question and for the responses. Next question, are you going to do a poll at the end for options we prefer? Yes, we will be doing that. So if everyone can hang on probably just for a few more minutes, I think we are probably getting towards just a few more questions. And then yes, I would like to do a poll and get a little bit more formal response. Okay, so Steve Schmidt is the next question. Is there any thought of creating a right turn lane in front of 25 Churchill? There is enough space that can be taken for a right turn lane onto El Camino North, or any chance of having 25 Churchill have an entrance off of El Camino. So PAUSD district traffic does not necessarily have to enter on Churchill. Jason, do you think that is something you'd be able to take?
Oh, actually, the city might be able to answer that. I think it's a part of the Churchill Enhanced project that's a part of that project area. But to give the specific details of the project, I'll let Ripon chime in.
So the project enhances bike path and improvements to the intersection of El Camino and Churchill. The adding new driveways is not part of the scope at this time. And this project particularly is funded through the safety improvements and therefore could not be included in the project for the intersection improvement. But at this time, that was not in the scope of the other project as well.
Sorry to interrupt, Ripon. Actually, it is as part of the signal modification to include a right turn only lane and extension of a bike slot between the right turn only lane and
At
the
El
left.
Camino and Churchill, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to start just after the existing driveway. So you're correct. No new driveways are going to be added or modified, but the right turn lane is going to start
Correct.
just west of the 25 Churchill driveway.
Okay.
Great,
Thank
thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the response. Okay, so next we go to Carrie, and she has a comment. Enhancing safety does not solve suicides, as today's incident shows. When is the decision from council on XCAP going to take place? What is the holdup? Ripon, is that something you can respond to?
Sure. So the XCAP is currently has already deliberated on the options or alternatives that were considered for these crossing locations, and making recommendations to the city council. City council, after receiving the final report from the XCAP, will provide directions to the city staff, and would also hear from the public. And at that time, we will proceed forward on that. It's a long-term project, and we will have to look for this is going to be a major infrastructure project, and we'll look for funding from other sources as well. So the timeline is not fully determined, but it's kind of progressing ahead at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question is from El Lepier. So also very much in favor of the pre-signal option for cars and enforcing the left turn only from East Churchill in the morning. So that was a comment. Thank you for that comment. Michael Price has another comment. Someone was killed on the tracks today. It would be nice to know whether it's thought that these changes would have prevented that. Such prevention would be worth the cost. That one's going to be a little hard to answer, especially today, as we don't have all the details on kind of the circumstances. I think in general, it's probably safe to say that it would be challenging and maybe impossible to design a crossing to prevent, to completely prevent someone kind of intentionally wanting to hurt themselves. I know that, and maybe Philip, if you wanted to chime in there in terms of just kind of city long-term city thoughts about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, thanks. And this is a little bit of impossible to kind of answer, whether it would have prevented what occurred today, when, we're still waiting to find out the information and the facts on that. But I will note that, the FRA and Caltrans identified this specifically, this crossing, and some of these specific things like the pre-signal as specific safety features that would improve the safety of this intersection. So that's why we're here tonight talking with you all about this project. And by the way, I didn't get to say this, unfortunately. Now there's only 29 people, or there were 29 or 30 people here. Now there's 24 on this, what is this, Thursday evening.
Great. Thank you, Michael, for the comment, and thank you for the response. Looks like we've got two more, and if we don't have any further questions or comments after that, then we can just take a formal poll and then wrap up the meeting today. So this is from Steve. What about banning cars on Churchill from Emerson to Alma in the morning so that bicyclists can use the whole lane, then put in a traffic light at Alma and Lowell to handle all of the diverted traffic from Churchill. I'll pass the baton to Ripon, but just to start off, I believe the closure of Churchill, that's been evaluated as part of the XCAP project, and that may be a comment that we can divert or pass on to the team there. Any additional thoughts, Ripon?
So Churchill Avenue closure is being looked at as part of the XCAP review. However, it does not eliminate cars completely because of the access to the adjoining properties that would be needed. And that would be further refined as a process of the design, and would have opportunities to make comments in the design progresses. But at this time, any more iterations or revisions to the other options that were considered in XCAP is not being looked at. So the options that for the closure that included certain through movements on Churchill was one of the option for the traffic closure or traffic volumes to be lowered on Churchill Avenue, and the bikes would have the bike and pedestrian tunnels or pathway to go through underneath the tracks at this location as part of the XCAP project or the grade separation project.
Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for the comment, Steve. Maurizio, let's see. So in the mid-afternoon, there are several trains crossing at Churchill. If you're waiting on Churchill going westbound towards Stanford, each time the train passes, the lights cycle restart from scratch, giving the right of way to the car on Alma going north-south. So you're waiting on Churchill for the green light, and then another train goes by, and the whole cycle starts again, and you wait and you wait. So the question is, any plan to change the light signal timing so that the green light is fairly distributed to between Alma and Churchill? And the system remembers that the car is already waited. Tricia, is that something you can answer?
Yes, so the signal timing modification, it did look at reducing some green time, taking away the green time from Alma Street and allocating it to eastbound and westbound Churchill. But in terms of the phasing itself, like how the whole thing starts from scratch, I agree, that's what happens right now. And that the analysis, the recommendation, so that doesn't change. That still remains the same, but the signal improvements, the timing improvements does take away a little bit of time from Alma Street in order to allocate it to the eastbound and westbound Churchill. So, but Alma would continue to receive the green time as soon as the train crosses, it would continue to receive green. And this is, I think, basically to keep the traffic on Alma going, because it's pretty congested during commute hours.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the clock and it's about 7:43, and we had promised that we would wrap up a little bit sooner. It looks like we have 2 more comments, and so those comments will be recorded. Appreciate the comments. I think at this point, I would like to wrap up. Let's see if we can conduct the poll to gauge people's preferences between concept 1 and 2. So Sarah, if you're able to launch the poll. And appreciate everyone's comments, appreciate everyone's questions. If you can let us know, window should have popped up for poll number 2. Which concept do you prefer? And we'll see if we have any consensus here. And certainly as we move forward, we will be looking to, digesting your comments and seeing what we can incorporate and address and move forward with refining the design.
As we've got the poll open, I'm noticing one of the questions is asking if we could show the drawings again. For someone who joined the meeting late, we might want to maybe put those up so people could respond to the poll with the drawings up, if that's possible.
Yeah, so you should be able to see the concept 1 and 2 up on your screen now.
Thank you.
So it looks like we've got about 20 attendees. So maybe once we get close to 20, if it looks like we're going to get everyone to respond, that would be great. And while we're waiting, it looks like Carrie has a hand raised. Is that a new hand raised?
Yes, I think it is.
Okay.
New.
Maybe let's see if we can. Oh, I think what I'd like to suggest, just given the time, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have, Carrie, if you have any further comments or questions, you can type it in to the Q&A and we will, they'll be part of the record. Or you can also email us. For everyone, if you have any further thoughts or input, you can email the city transportation office, and then we will have a slide at the end with Rushika's email. You can also contact her to continue to provide input. So I'm just going to go ahead and check on the poll. Do we have majority response? Looks like someone says, I can't vote because I missed the intro explaining the options. Okay. In the interest of time, we'll go ahead and let's go ahead and close the poll.
Okay.
And it'll be a snapshot. So it looks like most people prefer concept 1 compared to concept 2. And again, concept 1 was improving the pedestrian visibility across and retaining the dedicated right turn lane, whereas concept 2 was seeking to remove that dedicated right turn lane that's shown in the green to the right. So those are some of the major changes, but just in interest of time, we won't be reviewing all of those details again. So with that, I would like, let's see if we could, let's see, Ripon, is there another slide after this one? Are you able to advance? Okay, so go ahead and close the poll. So you can see there's email that you can contact if you have further thoughts, if you have further questions. We will be making the presentation and the graphics. They will be posted to the city's website. So if you want to take a closer look, if you want to pass it on, share, spread the word to your neighbors, please do so. And just want to say thank you for attending. Thank you for providing your input and taking the time out. Please help us get the word out to people who may have missed this. You will be receiving, if you've signed up and provided your email, we will be sending out notices for the future meetings. And at this point, thank you again, and we will be reporting back to you in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, is it possible you can stop broadcasting and recording?
Yes, I'm just doing a couple screenshots of things just in case. I don't trust what gets recorded and what doesn't. So yeah, you mean end it, Philip?
I think if you end it, you kick us all out, but I noted that we're still recording.
Right.
And we also have 3, well,
attendees.
Okay,
attendees still here.
Let's see, hang on.